The Chicago skyline burned gold in the late afternoon sun, each glass tower catching fire one by one like dominoes of light falling across the horizon. From the 95th floor of the Willis Tower, the city looked like a circuit board, pulsing with money and ambition, with the dreams of 8 million people compressed into a grid of streets and steel. Marcus Washington stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of the Sky Lounge, his reflection superimposed over the sprawl below. At 36, he had become the thing he once thought impossible: a black man with a corner office, a kid from the South Side with his name on the partnership door, the first African-American senior partner at Kensington Capital Management in the firm's 42-year history. His Tom Ford suit fit like a second skin, custom tailored to hide the fact that he still worked out like he was training to escape something. The Patek Philippe on his wrist cost more than his grandmother's house had sold for after she died. 6 months ago. 6 months, and he still couldn't think about her without feeling the floor tilt beneath him. Behind him, the private celebration was reaching its crescendo. Jake Sullivan's voice boomed across the lounge, already loose with expensive scotch and the euphoria of closed deals. Derek Chen's laugh cut through the noise like a knife, sharp and calculated even in celebration. They had just orchestrated the merger of the year. $400 million flowing through their fingers like water, and they would take home $8 million in fees each. Marcus turned from the window. The lounge was all leather and dark wood, and the kind of quiet luxury that whispered rather than shouted. A dozen of Chicago's elite filled the space, men in suits that cost what normal people made in 3 months, women in dresses that could fund a year of college. Everyone here had made it. Everyone here belonged. Everyone except the ghost of the boy Marcus used to be, the one who still whispered in his ear late at night when the city went quiet. Jake appeared beside him, crystal glass in hand, face flushed with victory. He was old money, Yale pedigree, the kind of man who had never known what it meant to be hungry. But he was genuine in his affection for Marcus, in the way a golden retriever is genuine: loyal, enthusiastic, and completely unaware of its own privilege. "Marcus, my brother," Jake said, clapping him on the shoulder. The "my brother" made something twist in Marcus's chest. Jake meant it as camaraderie. He had no idea how it sounded to a black man who had spent his entire career being the only one in rooms like this. "Can you believe we pulled it off? The Japanese were ready to walk. You saved that deal with that last presentation." Marcus smiled, the smile he had perfected over 10 years of code switching, of being articulate enough to be respected but not threatening enough to be feared. "Team effort," he said. Derek joined them, his approach silent as always. Where Jake was all golden boy enthusiasm, Derek was precision and calculation. Second-generation Chinese-American, MIT graduate, the kind of brilliant that made other brilliant people nervous. He and Marcus had an understanding. They were both outsiders who had clawed their way into the inner circle, but that understanding had sharp edges. "A toast," Derek said, raising his glass. His eyes glinted with something Marcus couldn't quite read. To the merger, to 8 million reasons to celebrate, and to Marcus, who finally proved he could close the big ones. The "finally" hung in the air for just a moment too long. Marcus raised his glass anyway. They clinked crystal, the sound pure and clean and hollow. "You know what we need," Jake said, his voice carrying that dangerous quality of a drunk man with an idea. "A little fun, a little excitement to cap off the day." Derek's smile sharpened. "What did you have in mind?" "A bet, like the old days." Jake's eyes were bright, reckless. "Remember when we made Peterson eat that ghost pepper, or when we convinced intern what's-his-name that we were taking the company public?" Marcus felt something cold slide down his spine. He remembered. He had laughed along with those pranks, had participated in the casual cruelty that passed for bonding in their world. But that was before his grandmother's funeral, before he stood in her tiny living room and saw the life she had built from nothing, the dignity she had maintained despite having nothing to build it with. Before her last words to him, whispered through morphine and determination, "Don't forget where you came from, baby. Don't forget who you are." He had been forgetting, successfully, for 10 years. "I don't know," Marcus started, but Derek cut him off. "Come on, Marcus, don't tell me you're going soft on us." Derek pulled out his phone, already recording. "Quick game, cards. Loser has to complete a dare. Winner's choice." Jake was already shuffling a deck that appeared from somewhere. The other guests gathered around, sensing entertainment. Marcus looked at their faces, flushed with alcohol and success, hungry for amusement. He looked at Derek's phone, the red recording light blinking like a warning. He thought about his grandmother's voice. He thought about the promotion he had just earned, the partnership that was still new enough to feel fragile. He thought about being the only black face in this room and how easily that could be used against him if he seemed difficult, if he didn't play along. "One round," he heard himself say. The cards fell like fate. Marcus had always been good with numbers, with odds, with reading the flow of probability. But tonight, the cards turned against him. Jake won with a flush. Derek's smile was the smile of a predator who had just spotted wounded prey. "Looks like Marcus is our lucky volunteer," Derek said. He pulled something from his wallet, held it up to the light. An American Express black card, the kind that had no spending limit, that opened doors normal money couldn't touch. Except this one was fake. Marcus could tell by the weight, the slightly off texture. Derek had shown it to him once before, used it for pranks on overeager waiters and valet attendants. It was perfect enough to fool anyone who didn't look too close. "Here's the dare," Derek said, and his voice carried across the lounge, making sure everyone heard. "You see that homeless girl down on Michigan Avenue, the one sitting outside Macy's?" Marcus's stomach dropped. Through the window, 95 floors below, he could just make out the ant-sized figures on the street. Somewhere down there, someone was struggling. Someone real. "You're going to go down there," Derek continued, "and you're going to give her this card. You're going to tell her she can buy anything she wants, anything her heart desires." He held up his phone. "And we're going to film her face when she tries to use it and it gets declined." The room laughed. The sound was ugly, the kind of laughter that comes from people who have never been declined, never been humiliated, never been the punchline. Jake's laugh was nervous, uncertain. "Come on, Derek, that's a little harsh, isn't it?" "What's the matter?" Derek's eyes locked on Marcus. "Afraid our newest partner can't handle a little fun? I thought you were one of us now, Marcus." There it was, the test. The unspoken question that had followed Marcus his entire career. Are you really one of us, or are you still one of them? His phone buzzed in his pocket. He ignored it. It was probably another message from his grandmother's church, another reminder of the memorial fund they were setting up in her name, another piece of the life he had left behind. "Fine," Marcus said. His voice sounded like it was coming from someone else. "I'll do it." The elevator ride down was the longest 95 floors of his life. The elevator was mirror-polished steel, showing Marcus his reflection from every angle. He looked successful. He looked like he belonged in this building, in this suit, in this life. But his grandmother's face kept superimposing itself over his reflection, the way she had looked in those final days. Disappointed, not in what he had failed to become, but in what he had succeeded in becoming. The fake credit card felt like it weighed nothing in his hand. Plastic and lies. The elevator doors opened onto Michigan Avenue, and the city hit him like a wall. March in Chicago was cruel, caught between winter's death and spring's reluctant birth. The wind cut through his expensive suit like it was paper. It had been years since Marcus had walked these streets, really walked them. He moved through the city in town cars and Ubers, insulated from the reality of pavement and weather and other people's desperation. The late afternoon rush swirled around him. Commuters heading home, tourists heading to restaurants, everyone moving with purpose and destination. Marcus pushed through the crowd, feeling like he was swimming upstream, fighting against a current that wanted to carry him back to the safe heights of the tower. He found her exactly where Derek had said. She sat on a piece of cardboard outside Macy's flagship store, her back against the limestone wall. The cardboard was clean, carefully placed to keep her off the cold concrete. She held a sign made from the back of a cereal box, the words written in careful block letters with a marker that was running out of ink. Anything helps. God bless. She was 7, maybe 8 years old. Too young to be alone on this street corner, but there she was anyway because the world was full of things that shouldn't be but were. Her coat was too thin for the weather pink synthetic material that might have come from a donation bin, but she was clean. That was the first thing that struck Marcus. Her hair was pulled back in careful braids, the kind that took time and love to create. Her face was scrubbed, her clothes worn but not dirty. Someone was taking care of her, or she was taking care of herself. Marcus stood there for a long moment, the crowd flowing around him like water around a stone. From the tower far above, Derek was probably watching through a telephoto lens, documenting this moment for the entertainment of people who thought poverty was something that happened to other people in other places. The girl looked up. Her eyes were brown, the deep brown of turned earth, of tree bark, of his grandmother's eyes when she used to read him stories before bed in the tiny apartment they shared. Those eyes held something that made Marcus's chest constrict. Not desperation, not even hope really. Just a kind of patient endurance, the look of someone who had learned that the world was hard and you survived it one moment at a time. He crouched down, felt his Tom Ford pants press against the gritty sidewalk. The smell of the street rose up to meet him, cold concrete and car exhaust, and that particular scent of urban desperation that most people walked past without noticing. "Hello," he said. His voice came out rougher than he intended. She looked at him wary. She had learned wariness young. "Hi." He held out the fake card, the black plastic gleaming in the fading sunlight. Somewhere far above, Derek's phone was recording. Somewhere in the tower, people were waiting for this moment, for the punchline of their cruel joke. "This is for you," Marcus said. She looked at the card, then back at his face, trying to understand the transaction, trying to figure out what this stranger wanted, because strangers always wanted something. "What is it?" Her voice was small but clear. She had been taught to speak properly, to enunciate. Someone had cared enough to teach her that. "It's a magic card," Marcus lied. The word magic tasted like ash in his mouth. "You can go into that store right there, and you can buy anything you want with it." He watched her process this. She was smart. He could see it in her eyes. She was trying to find the catch, the trick, the reason a man in a suit that cost more than a month's rent would give her something for nothing. She took the card with both hands, held it like it might break, or like it might be real. Her fingers trembled slightly, and Marcus realized it wasn't from the cold. It was from hope, fragile and dangerous hope, the kind that could cut you when it shattered. "Really?" she asked. Her eyes searched his face. "I can really buy anything." This was the first time she asked. Marcus felt something crack inside his chest, a fissure in the armor he had built around himself over 10 years of ruthless deal-making and strategic networking, and forgetting where he came from. "Yes," he said. The lie came easier the second time, even as it felt worse. "Anything you want." She looked at the card again, then back at the store. Macy's windows were full of spring displays, mannequins in bright dresses, promises of renewal and new beginnings. Then she looked back at Marcus. Anything with no money limit. This was the second time. The question was so careful, so precise. She wasn't being greedy. She was being thorough, making sure she understood the rules before she acted. It was the kind of careful negotiation Marcus recognized from boardrooms, from high-stakes deals where every word mattered. But coming from a child sitting on cardboard, it hit different. It felt like an accusation. "No limit," Marcus said. His throat felt tight. "You can buy anything you want." She started to stand, then stopped. She looked at him one more time, and her eyes held something that made Marcus want to look away but couldn't. It was gravity, pulling at something deep inside him that he had tried to bury. Even something very, very important. This was the third time, the third question, and with it, Marcus understood that whatever this child was about to buy, it wasn't for her. The weight of that understanding nearly knocked him backwards. "Yes," he whispered, "even something very important." She nodded, satisfied. Then she stood, smoothed down her too thin coat, and crossed the street toward the Walgreens on the opposite corner. Not Macy's. Not the toy store 2 blocks down with its window full of dolls and games. Not the candy shop with its rainbow display of sugar and temporary happiness. Walgreens. Marcus stood frozen on the sidewalk. His phone was buzzing again, probably Derek and Jake wondering what was taking so long, why he hadn't steered her toward something more entertaining. But Marcus couldn't move. He was caught in the gravity of that third question, of the weight the girl carried in her small frame. Even something very, very important. Against every instinct of self-preservation, against the voice in his head that told him to go back to the tower and finish this stupid bet and return to his life, Marcus followed her. The automatic doors of Walgreens exhaled warm air as Marcus entered. The fluorescent lights were harsh after the golden hour glow of the street, turning everything flat and overexposed. The store was doing steady business, people picking up prescriptions, grabbing last-minute groceries, moving through the aisles with the efficiency of routine. The girl moved differently. She walked with purpose, but also with the kind of careful attention that came from never having the luxury of carelessness. She knew exactly where she was going. Marcus followed at a distance, feeling like a criminal, or a spy, or both. He pretended to browse the greeting card section while watching her navigate toward the back of the store. His phone buzzed again. He silenced it without looking. She passed the toy aisle without even a glance. Marcus watched her walk past shelves of Barbie dolls and Lego sets, past board games and stuffed animals, all the things that should make a 7-year-old stop and stare with want. She didn't slow down. The candy aisle came next. Rows of chocolate and sugar, bright packages designed by experts to catch children's eyes and make them beg their parents for just one treat. She walked past it like it didn't exist. Marcus felt his confusion growing. The bet had been based on a simple, cynical premise. Everyone has a price, everyone has greed, and unlimited money reveals a person's true nature. Give a homeless child a limitless credit card and she'll want everything. She'll want toys and candy and all the immediate gratification that poverty had denied her. But this girl wasn't following the script. She turned down an aisle marked baby and child care. Marcus moved closer, no longer pretending to browse, just watching. She stood in front of a wall of infant formula, her eyes scanning the shelves with the focused intensity of someone who knew exactly what they were looking for. Her small hand reached up, fingers stretching for the top shelf. She pulled down a canister of Similac Pro Sensitive, the purple label clear even from Marcus's distance. Then she grabbed a bottle of Pedialyte from the next shelf over. Then children's Tylenol. Not candy, not toys, medical supplies. Marcus's mind raced through the implications. The formula was expensive, $30 a canister. The kind you used for babies with digestive issues with sensitive systems. The Pedialyte was for dehydration, the Tylenol for fever. She was shopping for a baby, or a very young child, someone who was sick. The girl carried her items to the front of the store, walking with the careful balance of someone who knew that dropping anything would mean losing it. She placed everything on the counter with the same solemnity Marcus had seen venture capitalists use when signing billion-dollar deals. The cashier was a woman in her 50s, wearing the kind of fatigue that came from standing for 8-hour shifts and dealing with the public's endless small cruelties. She looked at the items, then at the girl, and something in her expression softened. "That'll be $47.89, sweetheart," she said. The girl pulled out the fake black card and handed it over with both hands, like it was sacred. Like it was the answer to prayers Marcus didn't know she had been praying. The cashier took it, swiped it through the machine. Marcus held his breath. The world seemed to slow down, every second stretching into an eternity. He could hear the electronic hum of the card reader, the buzz of fluorescent lights, the distant sound of traffic outside. Then the machine beeped, sharp, electronic, final. A red light blinked on the display. The cashier looked at the screen, then at the card, then at the little girl. Her expression moved through surprise to understanding to pity, all in the space of a heartbeat. "I'm sorry, honey," she said, and her voice was gentle, but the words fell like stones anyway. "This card has been declined." Declined. The word hit Marcus like a physical blow. He had heard it before, of course, in his early days before he made it, before the money started flowing. But he hadn't heard it in years. In his world, cards didn't get declined. Payments didn't bounce. Money was a river that never ran dry. But for this girl, standing at the counter with medical supplies for someone she loved, declined was the sound of hope shattering. Her face didn't crumple. That's what destroyed Marcus. She didn't cry or scream or throw a tantrum. The light just went out of her eyes, replaced by a resignation so complete it could only come from having hoped and lost before. Many times before. "It's okay," she said quietly. Her voice was steady, controlled. "I'm sorry to bother you." She turned to leave, leaving the formula and Pedialyte and Tylenol on the counter, leaving behind whatever very important thing she had needed them for. Marcus's body moved before his brain caught up. He stepped forward, pulled out his wallet, extracted his real American Express card. The black metal felt heavy in his hand, weighted with actual purchasing power, with the ability to solve problems with money. "Wait," he said. The girl stopped. The cashier looked up. Half the people in line turned to stare. Marcus handed his card to the cashier. "Ring this up, and add some bread, cheese, and some fruit, good fruit, whatever's fresh." The cashier took his card, swiped it. The machine hummed its approval, processing the payment without hesitation. Approved. The opposite of declined. The sound of doors opening instead of slamming shut. Marcus crouched down beside the girl for the second time. This time, there was no arrogance in the gesture, no performative kindness for Derek's camera, just a man trying to fix something he had broken. "I'm sorry," he said. The words came from someplace deep, someplace he had locked away when he decided that success meant leaving his old life behind. There was a mistake with the other card. She looked at him with those brown eyes that saw too much, that held too much weight for someone so young. She didn't understand. How could she? She didn't know about the bet, about the cruel joke, about the men in the tower who thought other people's suffering was entertainment. She just knew that first there was hope, then it was taken away, Then it was given back. The emotional whiplash of it must have been devastating. The cashier handed Marcus his card and the bag of items. He took it, felt the weight of the formula inside, and handed the whole thing to the girl. "This is yours," he said. She took it slowly, carefully, like it might disappear if she grabbed too fast. Her eyes never left his face, trying to understand what kind of man gives magic cards that don't work, then fixes them when they break. Marcus stood up. His phone was vibrating constantly now, an angry wasp in his pocket. He could picture Derek and Jake in the tower, confusion turning to annoyance. The joke wasn't playing out right. The punchline was all wrong. He didn't care. The girl clutched the bag to her chest and turned toward the door. Marcus watched her go, watched her push through the glass doors into the cold Chicago evening. And then, against every logical impulse, against everything his survival instincts screamed at him, he followed her again. This time he needed to know. Where was she going? Who was she taking this to? What was so very, very important that a child would ask 3 times if it was real? The girl walked fast, moving with the kind of determination that came from knowing every second mattered. Marcus followed half a block behind, trying to look casual, trying not to be the creepy man in an expensive suit trailing a child through Chicago streets. The neighborhood changed as they walked. The glossy storefronts of Michigan Avenue gave way to narrower streets, graffitied walls, vacant lots fenced with chain link. This was a Chicago most tourists never saw, that Marcus himself hadn't seen in years, not since he left the South Side behind and moved into his Lincoln Park condo with its lake views and doormen. But he recognized it, the rhythm of it, the way people moved here, the careful navigation of space and territory, the unspoken rules that governed survival in places where money was tight and options were limited. The girl turned down an alley between 2 buildings, one abandoned, one barely hanging on. Marcus hesitated at the entrance. The sun was setting, throwing long shadows that turned the alley into a corridor of darkness. Every survival instinct told him to turn around, to go back to his world, to leave this alone. But he thought about her 3 questions. He thought about the formula in her bag. He thought about his grandmother, who would have walked into this alley without hesitation if someone needed help. He followed. The alley opened into a small alcove behind a loading dock, probably belonging to the Cook County Hospital building that loomed at the far end of the block. Tucked into the corner, sheltered from the worst of the wind, was a makeshift shelter built from cardboard boxes and salvaged wood. And there, lying on a pile of hospital blankets, was a boy. He was small, maybe 5 years old, wrapped in layers that couldn't quite hide how thin he was. His skin had an ashy quality, the kind that came from not enough water, not enough nutrients, not enough of everything that kept bodies running right. An IV pole had been rigged from a piece of pipe, and hanging from it was a saline bag nearly empty, connected to a line that ran into the boy's arm. Marcus's breath caught. This wasn't just poverty, this was medical crisis. The girl ran to the boy, kneeling beside him. "Isaiah, I got it, I got it." Her voice was full of desperate triumph, of relief so profound it cracked around the edges. She pulled the formula from the bag, opened it with hands that shook slightly, mixed it in a cup with water from a plastic jug. The boy, Isaiah, opened his eyes. They were fever bright. "Maya," his voice was a whisper. "I'm here, drink this." Marcus stood frozen at the edge of the alcove, his mind trying to process what he was seeing. The IV setup, the hospital blankets, the wristband he could see on Isaiah's thin arm when Maya adjusted his position to help him drink. He stepped closer, and Maya spun around, her body immediately moving to shield her brother. Her eyes were full of fear and defiance, the look of a small animal protecting its young. "Who are you?" she demanded. "What do you want?" Marcus held up his hands, showing he meant no harm. "I'm Marcus. I gave you the card. I just wanted to make sure you were okay." "We're fine." Her voice was hard, trying to sound tough. "You can go." But they weren't fine. Marcus could see that from 15 feet away. The boy needed a hospital, needed doctors, needed more than a 7-year-old could provide with stolen medical supplies and fierce determination. "That IV," Marcus said carefully. "Where did you get it?" Maya's chin lifted. "None of your business." "Maya," Isaiah's voice was weak. "It's okay." She looked at her brother and her defensive posture softened slightly. The love between them was palpable, thick in the air like humidity. She would die for him, this fierce small girl. She probably thought she might have to. "He was in the hospital," Maya said finally, "for 3 months. They were taking care of him. But then they said we aged out of emergency care, said we needed a permanent address and a legal guardian and insurance." She said the words like she was reciting something she'd heard from adults, terms she didn't fully understand but knew were the walls keeping her from what she needed. "What's wrong with him?" Marcus asked. Maya looked at Isaiah, then back at Marcus. She made a decision, the kind of desperate calculation that came from having no good options. "His kidneys don't work right. He needs dialysis. The hospital was doing it, but now—" She gestured at the IV, at the makeshift shelter, at the impossibility of the situation. "I've been trying to do it myself with the supplies I can get, but it's not enough. He keeps getting worse." Marcus felt the world tilt. He was standing in an alley behind a hospital in one of the richest cities in America, looking at a 5-year-old dying because the system had failed him. Because bureaucracy and insurance and all the structures that were supposed to protect people had left him here, in the cold, with only his 7-year-old sister to keep him alive. The formula wasn't for feeding. It was specialized renal formula for children with kidney disease. The Pedialyte was to manage electrolytes. The Tylenol for the fevers that came with his condition. Maya had asked if she could buy something very, very important. And this was it. This was everything. Her brother's life measured in a can of formula and a bottle of medicine. Marcus pulled out his phone. His hands were shaking, not from cold but from the magnitude of what he was about to do. He scrolled through his contacts, found the number for Dr. Sarah Okonkwo, his concierge physician, the Nigerian-American doctor who had built her practice on serving Chicago's elite but had never forgotten where she came from. "Dr. Okonkwo, it's Marcus Washington. I need you. Now, I have a child in crisis, 5 years old. End-stage renal disease. He needs immediate admission to Northwestern Memorial." Maya lunged forward, grabbed his arm. "No, they'll take him. They'll take us both. They'll put us in different foster homes. They always do." Marcus looked at her, saw the terror in her eyes. She had already lost so much. Parents, home, stability. All she had left was Isaiah, and she would rather watch him die in this alley than let the system tear them apart. "I won't let that happen," Marcus said. The words came out before he thought them through, before he calculated the cost or the commitment or the absolute insanity of what he was promising. "You can't stop them," Maya said. "You're just some rich guy. You don't know how it works." She was right. He didn't. But his grandmother's voice was loud in his head now, drowning out the voice of caution and self-preservation. "Don't forget where you came from, baby." "Trust me," Marcus said, "please." Maya looked at Isaiah, who was barely conscious now, his breathing shallow. She looked at Marcus, at his expensive suit and his confident posture and his phone that could summon doctors with a single call. She nodded. Within 15 minutes, an ambulance arrived. Dr. Okonkwo had called in every favor she had to expedite the admission. The paramedics were professionals, gentle with Isaiah as they transferred him to a proper stretcher, started him on fluids, wrapped him in warm blankets. Maya climbed into the ambulance without being asked, her hand locked around her brother's. Marcus climbed in after her. As the ambulance pulled away from the alley, Marcus's phone erupted with notifications. Texts from Jake and Derek, increasingly angry, demanding to know where he was. A voicemail from Derek, his voice tight with fury. "You ruined the best part of the joke, Marcus. We were ready for the punchline." Marcus looked at Isaiah, at Maya, at the very real human cost of treating people's lives as entertainment. He deleted the messages without responding. The ambulance doors closed, shutting out the world, and Marcus realized with a clarity that was almost physical that everything had just changed. His old life, his carefully constructed success, his partnership and his reputation and his place in that tower of glass and money, all of it was balanced on the edge of a decision he hadn't fully made yet but couldn't unmake. He had followed a homeless girl into an alley and found his conscience, and now there was no going back. Northwestern Memorial Hospital at night was all bright lights and hushed urgency, the kind of place where life and death played out in rooms behind closed doors, while families waited in lobbies that smelled of disinfectant and fear. Isaiah was rushed into the pediatric intensive care unit, a team of doctors and nurses swarming around him with the choreographed efficiency of people who fought these battles daily. Dr. Okonkwo had called ahead, had used her reputation and connections to clear the bureaucratic hurdles that would have normally taken days. Maya stood outside the room, her face pressed against the glass, watching as they connected her brother to machines, as they stabilized him, as they did in minutes what she had been desperately trying to do for weeks with stolen supplies and fierce determination. Marcus stood beside her, feeling useless in a way he had never felt before. In his world, problems were solved with money and strategy. But here, in this moment, all he could do was stand witness. Dr. Okonkwo emerged from the room, pulling off her gloves. She was a tall woman with kind eyes and the kind of presence that made you trust her immediately. She had built her practice on serving Chicago's wealthy elite, but she had grown up in Lagos, had seen real poverty, real desperation. She understood. "He's stable," she said, and Maya's knees nearly buckled with relief. "We're running tests, but from his medical history, he has end-stage renal disease. He needs dialysis 3 times a week minimum. Long-term, he'll need a kidney transplant." "How much?" Marcus asked, the automatic question of someone who had learned that money could fix most problems. Dr. Okonkwo looked at him steadily. The immediate admission, the stabilization, getting him into the dialysis program, we're looking at about $15,000 as a deposit. That's before we talk about ongoing care or transplant evaluation. $15,000. Marcus had paid more than that for his watch. He pulled out his wallet, extracted a credit card. "Done." Dr. Okonkwo took the card but didn't move to process it. "Marcus, this isn't just about the money. These children, where are their parents? Who's their legal guardian? The hospital is going to ask questions." Maya had gone very still beside him. He could feel her preparing to run, to grab Isaiah and disappear into the night before the system could catch them. "I'll handle it," Marcus said. "How?" Dr. Okonkwo asked. "You can't just decide to take responsibility for 2 children you met today. There are laws, procedures, social workers." "Then I'll follow the procedures, but I'm not letting them go back to that alley." Dr. Okonkwo studied him for a long moment. "Do you understand what you're taking on? This isn't a one-time payment and you're done. This is years of treatment, of appointments, of responsibility. This child's kidneys are failing. Without consistent care, he'll die. I understand. Do you? Her voice was gentle but firm. Because once the hospital reports this situation, DCFS will get involved. They'll investigate. They'll ask why a hedge fund manager suddenly wants to take custody of two homeless children he met today. They'll wonder about your motives. Marcus thought about Derek's video, about the bet, about how this whole thing started. He thought about how it would look to social workers and investigators. Rich man plays cruel prank, then tries to assuage his guilt by playing savior. Maybe that's all it was. Maybe Dr. Okonkwo was right to be skeptical. But then he looked at Maya, at the way she held herself like she was bracing for the next blow, the next abandonment. And he thought about his grandmother, who had been homeless when she was pregnant with his mother, who had slept in shelters and under bridges until she could scrape together enough for a room in a boarding house, who had raised him when his mother couldn't, who had given him everything she had so he could become the man in the expensive suit. She would have walked into that alley. She would have brought these children home without hesitation. My grandmother used to say that when God puts someone in your path, it's because you're supposed to help them, Marcus said. I don't know if I believe in God anymore, but I believe in her, and she would never forgive me if I walked away now. Dr. Okonkwo's expression softened. Okay, but you need to get a lawyer, family law, tonight if possible. This is going to get complicated fast. She took his card and disappeared down the hallway. Marcus turned to Maya, who was watching him with those two old eyes. Are you really going to help us? She asked. Or are you just going to make more promises and then leave? The question cut because it was fair. He had already lied to her once today, had given her a fake card and watched her hope shatter. Why should she trust him now? I'm going to try, Marcus said. I can't promise it'll work out. I can't promise the system won't fight us, but I promise I'll try. Maya looked at him for a long moment, weighing his words against her experience with adults and their promises. Finally, she nodded. It wasn't trust, not yet, but it was the possibility of trust. It was a beginning. Marcus's phone buzzed again. This time he looked. 17 missed calls, 32 texts, 3 voicemails, all from Jake and Derek. He scrolled to the most recent message. It was from Derek, sent 10 minutes ago. Where the hell are you? You made us look like idiots. The guys are asking questions. Call me back now. Marcus stared at the message. In his old life, 12 hours ago, that message would have sent him into crisis mode. His reputation, his standing with the partnership, his carefully cultivated image all threatened by failing to show up for the punchline of a stupid bet. But standing in this hospital hallway, with a 7-year-old who had been caring for her dying brother in an alley, with his grandmother's voice still echoing in his head, the text message felt like it was from another world, a smaller world. He typed a response, I'm busy, don't call again. He hit send before he could second-guess it, then turned off his phone entirely. Maya was still watching him. Who was that? Nobody important, Marcus said. And for the first time in 10 years, that was absolutely true. A nurse appeared at the door to Isaiah's room. He's asking for you, she said to Maya. Maya looked at Marcus, uncertain. He nodded. Go, I'll be right here. She went into the room, and through the glass Marcus watched her take her brother's hand. Isaiah's eyes opened, and even from here Marcus could see the relief in them. Not just from the pain being managed, not just from being warm and safe, but from seeing his sister, from not being alone. Dr. Okonkwo returned with paperwork. I've admitted him under medical emergency protocols. We have 72 hours before the hospital has to report to DCFS. That gives you 3 days to get legal representation and start the guardianship process. 3 days. 72 hours to figure out how to explain this to social workers, to judges, to a system that was designed to protect children but often ended up failing them. Marcus signed where she indicated. His signature felt heavier than usual, like each letter carried weight. "There's something else," Dr. Okonkwo said. "We ran preliminary blood work. Isaiah needs a kidney transplant, but the wait list is 3 to 5 years. His best chance is a living donor. We'll test Maya, but siblings aren't always matches. And if she's not, then we look for other family members. Parents, if we can find them. Extended family. And if there's no family." Dr. Okonkwo was quiet for a moment. "Then we wait and hope, and keep him alive on dialysis until a donor becomes available, if one does." Marcus looked through the glass at Isaiah, at this small boy whose kidneys were failing, who needed someone to literally give him a piece of themselves to survive. "Test me too," Marcus said. Dr. Okonkwo blinked. "Marcus, the odds of a non-relative being a match are extremely low, and even if you were a match, the evaluation process for living donors is extensive. It takes months." "Test me anyway." She studied him, then nodded. "I'll order the blood work." As she walked away, Marcus's phone, still off, sat heavy in his pocket. By now, Derek and Jake had probably moved from annoyance to anger. They would be making calls, talking to other partners, framing the narrative before Marcus could control it. He had broken the unspoken rules of their world. He had made them look bad. There would be consequences. But standing in that hospital hallway, watching through glass as a 7-year-old girl held her brother's hand and whispered promises that everything would be okay, Marcus found that he didn't care about the consequences the way he thought he would. His grandmother had been right. He had forgotten where he came from. He had spent 10 years building a life that looked successful but felt empty, surrounding himself with people who measured worth in dollars and treated other people's suffering as entertainment. He had climbed so high that he couldn't see the ground anymore, couldn't see the people on it, couldn't remember that he had once been down there too, hungry and scared, and depending on the kindness of people who had less than nothing to give. That homeless girl on Michigan Avenue, the one Derek had pointed at like she was a prop in their game. She could have been Marcus's mother. She could have been his grandmother. In another timeline, another set of circumstances, she could have been him. The nurse came out of Isaiah's room. "He's stable now. We're going to keep him sedated tonight, let his body rest. You should go home, get some sleep." Marcus looked at Maya through the glass. She had curled up in the chair beside Isaiah's bed, her hand still holding his, her eyes fighting to stay open. "I'm staying," Marcus said. The nurse looked like she wanted to argue, then saw something in his face that made her reconsider. "I'll bring you a blanket." Marcus settled into an uncomfortable plastic chair in the hallway. Through the window, he could see the Chicago skyline in the distance, the towers lit up against the night sky. Somewhere up there in one of those buildings, his partners were probably plotting his downfall. His career, the thing he had sacrificed everything for, was likely burning while he sat here. He should care more than he did. His phone was still off. The silence was profound. For the first time in years, Marcus Washington sat in the quiet and listened to his grandmother's voice, the one that had been trying to reach him through the noise of ambition and success, and all the things he thought mattered. "Don't forget where you came from, baby." He hadn't forgotten, he had just stopped looking. But he was looking now, and what he saw was 2 children who needed someone to choose them, to stand between them and a system that saw them as problems to be managed rather than people to be loved. He saw his grandmother's face in Maya's fierce protectiveness. He saw his own childhood hunger in Isaiah's too thin frame. He saw all the people who had helped him when he had nothing, who had given him chances he didn't deserve but desperately needed. And he understood, finally, what his grandmother had been trying to tell him in those last days. Success wasn't the tower. It wasn't the partnership or the money or the respect of people who didn't actually know him. Success was this: being in the right place at the right moment and choosing to help instead of walking away. Even if it cost him everything. Especially if it cost him everything. The nurse brought him a blanket. Marcus wrapped it around himself and settled in for a long night, watching over two children who weren't his but somehow had become his responsibility anyway. Tomorrow, he would call a lawyer. He would start the process of trying to become their guardian. He would face Derek and Jake and the consequences of walking away from their cruel game. Tomorrow, he would begin figuring out how to save Isaiah's life and keep Maya safe and navigate a system that was stacked against children like them. Tomorrow, the real fight would begin. But tonight, he just sat in the quiet hospital hallway and kept watch, making sure that if either of them woke up scared and alone, they would see someone there, someone who chose to stay. The city lights flickered outside. Somewhere up in that tower of glass and money, his old life was ending. And here, in this hospital room that smelled of disinfectant and hope, his new one was beginning. Marcus closed his eyes and heard his grandmother's voice one more time, softer now, approving. "That's my boy, that's my baby. You found your way home." He had, finally. After 10 years of running from where he came from, he had found his way back to the truth that had always been there, waiting for him to remember it. The only wealth that mattered was measured in the people you helped, the promises you kept, the love you gave when it cost you something real. Everything else was just numbers on a screen. Everything else was just noise. Dawn came to Chicago in shades of gray, the kind of morning that felt like the city was still deciding whether to wake up or go back to sleep. Marcus had spent the night in the hospital chair, his body folded into angles that would make him pay later. His Tom Ford suit was wrinkled beyond saving, his shirt collar had given up any pretense of starch, and his $500 shoes were scuffed from walking through alleys he was never meant to see. He looked like a man who had spent the night in a hospital waiting room, which is exactly what he was. Dr. Okonkwo found him there at 6 in the morning, 2 cups of terrible hospital coffee in her hands. She handed him one without a word. The gesture was kind enough that Marcus felt something crack in his chest, some wall he had built between himself and simple human connection. "Isaiah had a stable night," she said. "We've started him on a dialysis schedule, 3 times a week, 4 hours per session." Marcus did the math automatically. 12 hours a week, 52 weeks a year, 624 hours annually that this child would spend hooked up to a machine, having his blood cleaned because his own kidneys could not do the job they were designed for. "And the transplant list?" Marcus asked. Dr. Okonkwo's expression was carefully neutral, the kind of face doctors learned to wear when the news was bad, but they needed to deliver it without destroying hope entirely. "We submitted the paperwork, but Marcus, you need to understand. The wait for a pediatric kidney is typically 3 to 5 years. Isaiah's blood type is O positive, which is common, but that also means more competition. And his condition is severe. Without a living donor, the odds are not in his favor." "How not in his favor?" She was quiet for a moment, weighing how much truth to give him. "Children in his condition, without a living donor, have about a 40% survival rate over 5 years. 40%. Marcus had built a career on calculating odds, on measuring risk against reward. He had made billion-dollar decisions on probability assessments more favorable than 40%. But this was not money. This was a 5-year-old boy's life. "The blood work you ordered," Marcus said. "When will we have results?" "This afternoon. But Marcus, you need to prepare yourself. The odds of you being a match are extremely low, less than 1 in 100,000 for an unrelated donor. 1 in 100,000. Worse odds than getting struck by lightning. Worse odds than winning most lotteries. The kind of odds that rational people did not bet on." Marcus had never been accused of being entirely rational. "I'll wait," he said. Dr. Okonkwo studied him over her coffee cup. "You've been here all night. You should go home, shower, get some real sleep. Maya and Isaiah aren't going anywhere." Home? The word felt strange. His Lincoln Park condo with its 1,000 square feet of carefully curated emptiness suddenly seemed less like home than this uncomfortable plastic chair. But she was right. He needed to shower. He needed to think. And he needed to turn on his phone and face whatever storm was waiting for him. He stood, felt his spine protest the movement. Through the window of Isaiah's room, he could see Maya still curled in the chair beside her brother's bed. Someone had brought her a blanket during the night. Her hand was still holding Isaiah's, even in sleep. "When she wakes up," Marcus said, "tell her I'll be back this afternoon. Tell her I'm not leaving them." "I will." Marcus walked through the hospital corridors, past nurses changing shifts, past families beginning their own vigils. The morning light coming through the windows was harsh, unforgiving. It showed every crack in the walls, every stain on the floor, every tired line on every tired face. In the parking garage, Marcus found his BMW where he had left it a lifetime ago. 12 hours. That's all it had been since he followed Maya into that alley. 12 hours since his world had tilted on its axis, and everything he thought he knew about himself had come into question. He sat in the driver's seat and turned on his phone. It exploded with notifications. 53 missed calls, 87 text messages, 14 voicemails. The phone vibrated so hard in his hand it felt alive, angry, demanding his attention. The most recent message was from Derek, sent at 2 in the morning. "You're done, Marcus. Enjoy playing hero. It's going to cost you everything." Marcus stared at the message. The threat was clear. Derek was not going to let this go. The humiliation of the failed prank, the way Marcus had walked away from their world, it had wounded Derek's pride. And Derek was the kind of man who made people pay for wounding him. Marcus drove home through morning traffic, his mind already spinning through scenarios, calculating the damage, preparing for the battle he knew was coming. His condo-building doorman looked at him with barely concealed shock. Marcus realized what he must look like: rumpled suit, unshaven face, the kind of disheveled appearance that screamed personal crisis to anyone who knew how to read the signs. "Rough night, Mr. Washington?" the doorman asked, trying to keep his tone light. "You could say that." In the elevator to the 40th floor, Marcus caught his reflection in the polished steel. He looked like he had aged 5 years overnight. Or maybe he just looked like himself for the first time in a decade. He was not sure which option was worse. His condo was exactly as he had left it, spotless, empty, a monument to success and isolation. The lake stretched beyond the windows, gray and restless under the morning sky. Marcus stood in the middle of his living room and felt like a stranger in his own life. He showered, shaved, dressed in fresh clothes. The ritual of normalcy. When he emerged, his phone was ringing again. Jake's name on the screen. Marcus answered. "Marcus, thank God." Jake's voice was tight with stress. Where have you been? Derek's been trying to reach you all night. We need to talk now. I'm listening. Not on the phone. Emergency partners meeting. 10 o'clock, don't be late. The line went dead. Marcus looked at his watch. 9:15. He had 45 minutes to prepare for whatever Derek had planned. 45 minutes to build a defense against accusations he could already predict. He made coffee, strong and black. He sat at his dining table and opened his laptop. The partnership agreement was buried in his files, a document he had signed 6 months ago with triumph and pride. Now he read it with different eyes, looking for the trap doors, the emergency clauses, the ways his partners could move against him. There, page 47. Emergency dissolution protocols. If 2/3 of the partners agreed that a member's conduct was detrimental to the firm's interests, they could place that member on administrative leave pending investigation. Derek and Jake made 2/3 of the three-person partnership. Marcus closed the laptop. He knew what was coming. The only question was how bad it would be. The Kensington Capital Management offices occupied the entire 62nd floor of a tower on LaSalle Street, in the heart of Chicago's financial district. Marcus had walked into this building every day for 6 years with pride and purpose. Now, riding the elevator up, he felt like he was ascending to his own execution. The reception area was all glass and chrome and expensive art that meant nothing. Marcus nodded to the receptionist, walked past her careful smile into the main conference room. Derek and Jake were already there. Derek sat at the head of the table, his posture relaxed but his eyes sharp. Jake was at the window, looking out at the city, his shoulders tense. Marcus. Derek's voice was pleasant, which was somehow worse than if he had been angry. Thank you for joining us. We were beginning to worry. Marcus took his seat. What's this about? Straight to business. I always appreciated that about you. Derek opened a folder in front of him, pulled out papers. Let's talk about yesterday, the bet, the homeless girl, your disappearing act. I helped 2 children who needed medical attention. Helped, Derek smiled. Is that what we're calling it? Because from where I'm sitting, you sabotaged a harmless prank, made us look foolish in front of our colleagues, and then vanished for 12 hours without explanation. The prank was cruel. I stopped it, that's all. Derek pulled out his phone, tapped the screen. A video began playing. Marcus recognized it immediately. It was from yesterday, the moment he gave Maya the fake card, but it was edited, cut and spliced to make it look different. In this version, Marcus appeared to be filming her himself, appeared to be laughing as he handed over the card. Interesting perspective, isn't it? Derek said. This is the version our colleagues saw last night, the version that makes it look like you initiated the whole thing, like it was your idea. Marcus felt ice slide down his spine. That's not what happened. Isn't it? Because I have 6 witnesses who will testify that you suggested the bet, that you were the one who wanted to humiliate a homeless child for entertainment. Jake turned from the window. His face was pale, guilty. Marcus, I'm sorry. Derek showed me the video. I didn't realize you had taken it that far. Jake, you know that's not true. You were there. Jake would not meet his eyes. I was drunk. I don't remember everything clearly. And there it was. Derek had gotten to Jake first, had shown him the edited footage, had convinced him or threatened him or bought him. It did not matter which. Jake was going to side with Derek. The 2/3 majority was secured. Here's what's going to happen, Derek said, his voice still pleasant, still reasonable. We're placing you on administrative leave, effective immediately. We'll conduct an investigation into your conduct, into the incident yesterday, into whether you used firm resources for personal matters. I used my personal credit card for the hospital deposit. Did you? Because our records show you approved a $15,000 payment from the discretionary account yesterday evening, while you were supposed to be celebrating our merger. Marcus felt the trap close around him. He had been so focused on getting Isaiah admitted, on making sure the paperwork went through, that he had not paid attention to which card he handed Dr. Okonkwo. He had pulled out the first card in his wallet, the firm card. It was an honest mistake, but in Derek's hands it was ammunition. That was accidental, Marcus said. I'll reimburse the firm today. That's not the point, Derek leaned forward. The point is a pattern of erratic behavior, emotional instability, poor judgment. You've been different since your grandmother died. We've all noticed it. This incident with the homeless children is just the latest example. They have names, Meyer and Isaiah. I don't care what their names are. Derek's pleasant mask slipped for just a moment, showing the cold calculation beneath. I care about our reputation, our relationships with our investors, our credibility in the market. And right now, Marcus, you are a liability. Jake finally spoke, his voice weak. Marcus, maybe you should take some time off. Get your head straight. Come back when you're thinking more clearly. Marcus looked at him, at this man he had considered a friend. You're really going to let him do this? I'm trying to help you, but Jake still would not meet his eyes. Derek slid a document across the table. Here are the terms. Administrative leave for 60 days. Your equity in the partnership is frozen pending investigation. You'll retain your title and benefits, but you're not to contact clients or represent the firm in any capacity. At the end of 60 days, we'll reconvene and decide on your future here. Marcus looked at the document. He thought about fighting it. He had built this partnership as much as they had. He had closed deals, brought in clients, made them all rich. But he also understood power. And right now, Derek held it. He thought about Maya and Isaiah in that hospital room. He thought about the guardianship process Dr. Okonkwo had mentioned, the lawyers he would need, the battles ahead. He thought about what mattered and what did not. I'll sign it, Marcus said, on one condition. Derek raised an eyebrow. You're not in a position to negotiate. Not a negotiation, a condition. You leave the hospital situation alone. You don't use it against me. You don't contact DCFS or the media or anyone else. This stays between us. Why would I agree to that? Because if you don't, I'll fight this. I'll hire lawyers. I'll drag this firm through discovery. I'll make sure every reporter in Chicago knows about our bet, about your edited video, about what really happened yesterday. Your reputation will burn along with mine. Derek's eyes narrowed. For a long moment, the room was silent except for the hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of traffic far below. Fine, Derek said finally. We keep the children out of it for now, but Marcus, understand this. You're on borrowed time. One mistake, one misstep, and I will destroy you, completely. Marcus signed the document. His signature felt heavier than it should, like he was signing away more than just 60 days of his career. He stood to leave. At the door, he turned back. Derek, can I ask you something? Why do you hate me so much? Derek smiled, and it was the most honest expression Marcus had seen from him all morning. I don't hate you, Marcus. I envy you. You came from nothing and made yourself into something. You broke through barriers that should have kept you out, and for a while I respected that. But then I realized something. You never really belonged here. You were always going to choose them over us eventually. Yesterday just proved me right. Marcus left the conference room, walked past the receptionist's careful neutrality, took the elevator down 62 floors. Each floor felt like a layer of his old life being stripped away. By the time he reached the ground, He was someone different than the man who had gone up. His phone rang before he reached his car. Unknown number. Mr. Washington, this is Dr. Okonkwo. I have your blood test results. Marcus's heart hammered, and Marcus, I don't know how to tell you this. The odds were astronomical, but you're a match. 6 out of 6 HLA match. You're a perfect donor for Isaiah. The world tilted. Perfect match. 1 in 100,000 odds, maybe 1 in a million. What does this mean? Marcus asked, though he already knew. It means if you're willing, if you pass the medical and psychological evaluations, you could give Isaiah a kidney. You could save his life. Marcus stood in the parking garage, phone pressed to his ear, surrounded by expensive cars belonging to people who would never understand what this moment meant. How long does the evaluation take? Minimum 3 months. We need to make sure you're healthy enough for surgery, psychologically prepared for what donation means, that you understand the risks and commitment. 3 months. 90 days of evaluations while Isaiah's body slowly failed, kept alive by machines and hope. Start the process, Marcus said, today. Marcus, you need to understand. Kidney donation is major surgery. There are risks. And once you donate, you'll only have 1 kidney yourself. It will change your life. Start the process, Marcus repeated. He could hear the smile in her voice. I'll make the calls. Marcus hung up and stood in the silence of the parking garage. In the last 24 hours, he had lost his partnership, his reputation, possibly his entire career. And now he was signing up for major surgery to give a piece of his body to a child he had met yesterday. His grandmother's voice was loud in his head, clearer than it had been since her funeral. That's my boy. That's exactly right. The lawyer's office was in a converted brownstone in Wicker Park, far from the glass towers of the financial district. Patricia Chen was a family law attorney who had built her practice on impossible cases, on fighting for clients the system had already written off. Her office walls were covered in photos of families she had helped piece together from broken parts. She listened to Marcus's story without interrupting, her pen moving across a legal pad in quick, efficient strokes. When he finished, she set down her pen and looked at him with eyes that had seen too much human suffering to be surprised by any of it. Mr. Washington, I'm going to be direct with you. What you're trying to do is legally complicated and emotionally fraught. The courts don't generally grant guardianship to strangers, especially strangers who met the children less than 48 hours ago. I understand that. I'm not sure you do. She leaned forward. The state is going to look at this situation and see red flags everywhere. Wealthy man suddenly wants custody of 2 homeless black children after a bizarre incident involving a fake credit card. They're going to question your motives. They're going to wonder if this is some kind of savior complex, if you're trying to assuage guilt, if you have ulterior motives. I don't have ulterior motives. Then what do you have? Why are you doing this? Marcus thought about the question. He thought about his grandmother, about the alley, about Maya's 3 questions and Isaiah's failing kidneys. He thought about the moment he turned off his phone and chose this impossible road. Because they need someone, he said finally, and I'm the only one standing here. Patricia studied him for a long moment. That's the most honest answer I've heard from a client in 5 years. Okay, here's what we're looking at. First, we petition for emergency temporary guardianship based on Isaiah's medical needs and your matching blood type. That's our strongest argument. You're literally the only person who can save this child's life. How long will that take? If we're lucky, 2 weeks. If we're not, 2 months. Depends on the judge, on how backed up the court is, on whether anyone contests it. Who would contest it? Patricia's expression was grim. DCFS might argue the children should go into foster care while they search for relatives. If there are any biological family members out there, they could challenge. And Mr. Washington, I need to ask you a difficult question. Are you married? Divorced 2 years ago. Children from that marriage? No. Does your ex-wife know about this situation? Not yet. She will, and when she does, she might have opinions. Judges like to see stable family situations. Single man taking in 2 children raises questions. Marcus absorbed this. He had not thought about Vanessa, had not considered how she might factor into this equation. They had not spoken since the divorce was finalized, since she had made it clear that she could not be with a man who worked 18-hour days and measured his worth in deal closings. What else? Marcus asked. Money. The court will want to see that you can provide for these children. Medical care, education, stable housing. Given your situation at work, that might be complicated. I have assets, real estate investments. Liquid assets. Because medical care for a child with ESRD is expensive. We're talking hundreds of thousands annually before the transplant, potentially over $1 million for the surgery and recovery. Marcus did the mental math. His Lincoln Park condo was worth $1.2 million with a $600,000 mortgage. He had $380,000 in personal savings, separate from the partnership equity that was now frozen. His car was worth maybe $80,000 if he sold it quickly. His art collection, his watches, other liquid assets might bring another $200,000. Total accessible net worth, around $1.4 million. Enough, maybe. I can cover it, Marcus said. For how long? What happens when that money runs out? I'll figure it out. Patricia made notes. Okay, here's the timeline. I'll file the emergency petition today. We'll need character references, employment verification, background checks. The home study will be invasive. They'll interview you, inspect your residence, talk to your neighbors, your employer, anyone who knows you. My employer just placed me on administrative leave. Patricia's pen paused. That's not ideal. When did that happen? This morning. Because of this situation. Partially. She sighed. Mr. Washington, the court is going to see a man whose life is falling apart trying to take on the responsibility of 2 traumatized children. You need to understand how that looks. How does it look? Like you're having a crisis. Like these children are a band-aid on a wound you haven't dealt with. And the court will not use children as therapy for adults, no matter how good your intentions are. Marcus felt the weight of it settling on him, the impossibility of what he was trying to do. But then he thought about Isaiah hooked up to machines, about Maya sleeping in a chair so she could hold her brother's hand through the night, about promises made and the cost of breaking them. File the petition anyway, he said. Patricia nodded slowly. Okay, but Mr. Washington, one more thing. This is going to get hard, harder than you think. The system is going to fight you. Your ex-wife might fight you. Your employer might use this against you. And those children, they're going to test you in ways you can't imagine. They've been abandoned before. They'll assume you'll abandon them too. They'll push and push until you break, just to prove they were right not to trust you. I won't break. Everyone breaks. The question is whether you'll put yourself back together or walk away. Marcus stood to leave. At the door he turned back. How much is your retainer? $25,000. He had not expected it to be cheap. I'll have a check sent over today. Make it cashier's check. Given your employment situation, I need to know the funds are solid. Marcus drove back to the hospital, his mind spinning through calculations and contingencies. $25,000 for the lawyer, $15,000 for the hospital deposit already paid. Call it $40,000 gone in less than 48 hours. At this rate, his savings would last maybe 6 months before he started having to liquidate real assets. 6 months to get guardianship, complete the donor evaluation, get Isaiah through surgery, and find a new source of income. The math was not encouraging. At the hospital, he found Maya in the cafeteria, picking at a tray of food someone had brought her. She looked small and lost in the large space, surrounded by families visiting their own sick loved ones. Marcus sat down across from her. "How's Isaiah?" "They said he's stable, whatever that means." She pushed food around her plate without eating. "Is this real, or are you going to take it back again?" The question hit him in the chest. Of course she would think that. He had already lied to her once. "It's real," Marcus said. "I talked to a lawyer today. We're going to petition the court for guardianship. It's going to take some time, but I'm not going anywhere." "Why?" Maya looked at him with those old eyes. "Why do you even care?" Marcus thought about all the sophisticated answers he could give, about second chances and redemption and his grandmother's legacy. But Maya deserved the truth, simple and clean. "Because when I was your age, I lived with my grandmother in a one-bedroom apartment in Inglewood. We were poor, really poor. Some days we did not know if we were going to eat, but she never gave up on me. She worked 2 jobs, went to church on Sundays, made sure I did my homework every night. She gave me everything she had so I could have a chance." Maya was listening now, really listening. "She died 6 months ago," Marcus continued. "And before she died, she told me not to forget where I came from. But I did forget. I got rich and successful, and I forgot what it felt like to be hungry and scared. Then I saw you and Isaiah, and I remembered. And I realized that if I walked away, I would be proving that I had become exactly the kind of person my grandmother hoped I would never be." "So we're like your second chance." Maya's voice was skeptical. "That's what this is." "No, you're not my second chance. You're 2 kids who need help, and I'm someone who can help. It's that simple." "Nothing's that simple." She was right, of course, but Marcus did not know how to explain the complexity without making it sound like he had doubts, and he could not afford doubts, not with her watching him like she was waiting for him to prove her worst fears correct. "You're right," Marcus said. "Nothing's simple. This is going to be hard and complicated, and sometimes it's going to feel impossible. But Maya, I need you to know something. I'm not your father. I'm not trying to replace anyone you've lost. But I am trying to be someone you can count on. Someone who shows up. Someone who keeps his promises." "People always say that at first." "I know, and I know you have no reason to believe me. So I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm just asking you to give me a chance to prove it." Maya looked at him for a long time. Then she went back to pushing food around her plate. "Isaiah likes you. He told me this morning that you have kind eyes." "He did?" "Yeah, he's a good judge of people, better than me." She finally took a bite of her sandwich. "Okay, you can have your chance, but if you mess this up, if you hurt him, I'll never forgive you." "That's fair." They sat in companionable silence for a while, eating bad cafeteria food and watching the hospital world move around them. It was not much, but it was a beginning. 3 weeks into Marcus's administrative leave, the condo sold. Not for the $1.2 million he had hoped for, but for $975,000. Derek had made sure the real estate community knew about Marcus Washington's situation, whatever that meant to people who trafficked in gossip and reputation. After paying off the mortgage and closing costs, Marcus walked away with $320,000. Added to his existing savings, he now had just under $700,000 in liquid assets. It sounded like a lot until he did the math on Isaiah's care. Dialysis 3 times a week at $2,000 per session. Medications at $1,500 per month. Specialized formula and nutritional supplements at $800 per month. The lawyers at $25,000 and counting. The evaluation process for kidney donation at $30,000 over 3 months. Marcus was burning through $30,000 a month just keeping Isaiah alive and the legal process moving forward. At that rate, his money would last less than 2 years, and that was before the actual transplant surgery, which would cost somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million depending on complications. He needed income. He needed it desperately. But every job application he sent out disappeared into silence. His name had been quietly poisoned in Chicago's financial community. Derek had made sure of that. Marcus moved into a 3-bedroom apartment in Pilsen, a neighborhood he had not lived in since his 20s. The rent was $1,800 a month, a fraction of what his condo mortgage had been. The building was old but clean. The neighbors were mostly working-class families, and there was a school 3 blocks away that Maya could walk to when the guardianship went through. If it went through. The home study had been brutal. A social worker named Patricia Hayes had come to the apartment, had walked through every room with the critical eye of someone who had seen every kind of living situation and was not easily impressed. She had asked questions that felt like accusations. Why did he want to do this? What were his motivations? Did he understand the trauma these children carried? Was he prepared for the behavioral issues that came with abandonment? Marcus had answered honestly, knowing that anything less would show in his face, his body language. He wanted to help. His motivations were complicated but sincere. He understood trauma perhaps better than she thought. And yes, he was as prepared as anyone could be for something impossible. Patricia Hayes had written notes on her clipboard and told him she would make her recommendation to the court within 2 weeks. That was 10 days ago. Marcus was still waiting. Isaiah was getting stronger. The regular dialysis was stabilizing him, bringing color back to his cheeks, energy back to his movements. He smiled now, laughed at cartoons on the hospital TV, asked Marcus questions about the world beyond the hospital walls. But Maya remained watchful, guarded. She was waiting for Marcus to fail, and Marcus could not blame her. On a Tuesday morning in late April, Marcus's phone rang with a number he did not recognize. He answered anyway. Everything was a potential crisis now. Marcus, it's James Crawford. Marcus's former mentor, the tech entrepreneur who had offered him the investment opportunity 3 weeks ago. Marcus had not returned his calls, had been too focused on Isaiah and the guardianship to think about business opportunities. James, I'm sorry I haven't gotten back to you. I heard about what happened with Kensington. Derek's been talking, not saying much but enough that people are asking questions. I'm sure he has. Look, Marcus, I'm calling because that biotech opportunity I mentioned, it's still available. $500,000 gets you 15% equity. The company is about to announce a breakthrough in gene therapy. This thing is going to explode. Within 18 months, your stake will be worth $5 million, maybe more. $5 million. Enough to secure Isaiah's care for years. Enough to rebuild his career. Enough to prove to the court that he was financially stable, that he could provide for these children. When do you need an answer? Marcus asked. End of week, Friday at the latest. After that, the round closes and the opportunity's gone. Marcus hung up and sat in his small apartment, looking at the numbers he had written down 100 times. 500,000 invested wisely could become 5 million, could secure everything. but 500,000 was almost all of his remaining liquid assets. If he invested it and the deal went wrong, he would have nothing. No safety net. No way to pay for Isaiah's care if something went wrong. It was a gamble. The kind of gamble he used to make without hesitation when it was just his money, his future on the line. But it was not just his future anymore. That same afternoon, Dr. Okonkwo called. "Marcus, we have a problem. Isaiah's showing signs of peritonitis. It's an infection in the abdominal cavity, probably from the dialysis catheter. We need to do emergency surgery to clean it out and place a new access point." "How much?" "The surgery, the hospital stay, the new equipment. We're looking at about 180,000. Insurance will cover some of it, but you're going to be responsible for at least half." $90,000. Marcus did the math. If he paid for the surgery, he would have just enough left to invest in James's biotech deal. But then he would have no emergency fund, nothing to fall back on if something else went wrong. And things always went wrong. "Schedule the surgery," Marcus said. "Marcus, there's something else. The infection means we have to delay your donor evaluation. We can't move forward with your transplant until Isaiah is stable again. That pushes everything back at least a month." Another month, another $30,000 in medical costs, another month of uncertainty. Marcus hung up and stared at the ceiling of his small apartment. The walls felt like they were closing in. Every decision led to two more decisions. Every problem solved revealed three more problems waiting beneath. His phone rang again. This time it was Patricia Chen, his lawyer. "Mr. Washington, I need to talk to you about something. Your ex-wife filed a petition with the court. She's requesting consideration as an alternative guardian for Maya and Isaiah." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. What? Why would Vanessa do that? "According to her filing, she's concerned about your mental state and financial instability. She claims that, as your former spouse, she understands your psychological patterns and believes you're having a crisis. She argues that she can provide a more stable home environment." "She doesn't even know them. She's never met them." "That doesn't matter legally. The court has to consider all options. And Mr. Washington, I have to be honest. Her petition is strong. She's a radiologist, stable income, married to a successful attorney, house in Evanston. On paper, she looks like the better option." "This is insane. She's doing this to hurt me, not to help them." "Maybe, but we have to respond. Which means more legal fees, more court appearances, more time. This is going to get expensive and ugly." Marcus closed his eyes. The walls were definitely closing in now. That Friday, Marcus called James Crawford back. "I appreciate the opportunity," Marcus said, "but I can't invest. I need the capital for medical expenses." There was a long silence on the other end. "Marcus, do you understand what you're walking away from? This is your chance to rebuild, to come back stronger than before." "I know. You're choosing those kids over your future." "No," Marcus said. "I'm choosing their future over mine. There's a difference." "Is there? Because from where I'm sitting, you're throwing away everything you built for two children you barely know. That's not noble, Marcus. That's self-destruction." Maybe it was. Marcus was not sure anymore. The line between sacrifice and self-destruction had become blurry. He hung up and sat in the silence of his apartment. Outside, the city moved on, indifferent to his crisis. People went to work, picked up their kids from school, lived their normal lives. Marcus had not had a normal life in 6 weeks. Isaiah's surgery was scheduled for Monday. The guardianship hearing was in 2 weeks. Vanessa's custody challenge would be heard at the same time. Marcus had $63,000 left in his account after paying for the surgery. Everything was falling apart, and Marcus was too tired to stop it. Isaiah's surgery went well. The infection was cleared, the new dialysis access placed, the immediate crisis resolved. But the recovery meant another 2 weeks in the hospital, another $12,000 in costs, another delay in the transplant evaluation. Marcus spent his days at the hospital and his nights in his empty apartment, eating ramen and canned soup, watching his bank account dwindle like water draining from a sink. He had started applying for jobs outside finance, consulting gigs, contract work, anything that would bring in income. But without references from Kensington, without Derek's approval, the doors remained closed. His phone rang less and less. Friends who had celebrated with him at that rooftop bar 6 weeks ago no longer called. Invitations stopped coming. He had become invisible to the world he had spent 10 years breaking into. One afternoon, Marcus arrived at the hospital to find Maya sitting in the hallway outside Isaiah's room, crying. Real tears, the kind she had held back for weeks. Marcus sat beside her. What happened? They said he might not make it to transplant. Her voice was choked. The social worker lady, she said, even if you get to donate, the surgery might be too much for his body. She said we should prepare ourselves. Marcus felt something cold settle in his chest. He had been so focused on getting guardianship, on raising money, on fighting Vanessa's challenge, that he had not let himself think about the possibility that none of it would matter, that Isaiah might die anyway. Did Dr. Okonkwo say that? Marcus asked. No, the social worker, Patricia. Marcus stood up. He found Patricia Hayes in her office, reviewing files. What did you tell Maya? He demanded. Patricia looked up, her expression tired. I told her the truth. That child is very sick. The transplant is high risk. She needs to understand that. She's 7 years old. She needs hope, not statistics. She needs reality, Mr. Washington, and so do you. You're bankrupting yourself for a child who might not survive the surgery. You're destroying your career, your relationships, everything you built. For what? For him, for them. Why are you really doing this? Marcus leaned against the doorframe, felt the exhaustion of 6 weeks of crisis settle into his bones. You want to know why? Because 6 months ago I sat in a hospital room just like Isaiah's and watched my grandmother die. And you know what her last words to me were? Don't forget where you came from. But I had forgotten. I forgot that I used to be that kid. Hungry, scared, dependent on the kindness of people who had nothing to give. I forgot, and I became someone who would make bets on humiliating homeless children for entertainment. His voice cracked. So yeah, maybe this is me trying to fix something broken in myself. Maybe it is selfish. But those kids are alive because I chose to help instead of walk away. And if Isaiah dies, at least he'll die in a clean bed with people who care about him. Not in an alley, not alone. Patricia was quiet for a long moment. The hearing is in 1 week. I'm recommending temporary guardianship be granted to you, not because I think you're the perfect solution, but because you're here. You showed up, and that counts for something. Marcus felt relief wash over him. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Your ex-wife's petition is strong. Judge Foster could go either way. That night, Marcus fainted in the hospital cafeteria. One moment he was standing in line for coffee, the next the floor was rushing up to meet him. He came to with nurses surrounding him, with someone checking his blood pressure, with concerned faces asking if he had eaten. He had not properly, not in days. Dr. Okonkwo appeared, helped him to a chair, brought him orange juice and crackers. You can't save him if you die first, she said, echoing words she had spoken weeks ago. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're exhausted, malnourished, and stressed beyond what any human body can sustain. Marcus, you need to take care of yourself. I don't have time for that. Make time. Because if you collapse during the kidney donation surgery, if your body can't handle the stress, then this was all for nothing. She was right. Marcus knew she was right. But knowing did not make it easier to slow down, to rest, to do anything except keep moving forward, because stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant feeling the weight of everything that could go wrong. Maya found him in the cafeteria, the nurses having called her when he fainted. She sat beside him, small and fierce and worried. You scared me, she said. I'm okay. No, you're not. You look terrible. She studied him with those old eyes. You're not eating, you're not sleeping, you're making yourself sick. I'm fine, Maya. Stop saying that. You're not fine. Nobody who's fine faints in a cafeteria. She pulled a granola bar from her pocket, one of the snacks the nurses kept giving her. Eat this, and then go home and sleep. For real sleep, not that thing you do where you close your eyes for 2 hours and call it a night. Marcus looked at this 7-year-old giving him instructions on self-care and felt something break open in his chest. She was taking care of him. After everything, she was the one trying to keep him from falling apart. Okay, he said, I'll eat, I'll sleep. Promise. Promise. She watched him eat the granola bar, her expression serious, like a nurse monitoring a patient. When he finished, she nodded approval. The hearing is next week, she said. Are we going to win? Marcus wanted to lie, to reassure her that everything would work out, but she deserved the truth. I don't know, but I'm going to fight as hard as I can. What if we lose? What if they make us go with your ex-wife? Then I'll still visit. I'll still be your donor if Isaiah needs it. I'll still be in your lives. But you won't be our family. The word family hit him harder than it should. He had not let himself think of it in those terms. Guardian, yes. Protector, supporter, advocate. But family felt too big, too permanent, too much like something he could lose. No, Marcus admitted. I wouldn't be your family, not legally. Maya nodded slowly, processing this. Then we better win. Yeah, we better win. She stood to go back to Isaiah's room, then paused. Marcus, thank you for trying. Even if it doesn't work out, thank you for trying. She left before he could respond. Marcus sat in the cafeteria, surrounded by the noise of the hospital, the beep of monitors, the shuffle of feet, the low conversations of other people fighting their own battles. He thought about Vanessa's petition, about standing in front of a judge and trying to explain why a bankrupt, unemployed, physically exhausted man should be trusted with 2 traumatized children. He thought about Derek somewhere in his glass tower, probably celebrating Marcus's downfall with expensive scotch and cruel laughter. He thought about his grandmother, about the life she had built from nothing, about the sacrifices she had made so he could have chances she never had. And he thought about Maya's question, are we going to win? Marcus did not know. The odds were not in his favor. They had not been from the start. But he had learned something in the last 6 weeks. Sometimes you did not fight because you thought you would win. You fought because the alternative was unthinkable. Giving up on Maya and Isaiah was unthinkable. So he would go to that hearing. He would stand before that judge. He would tell the truth about who he was and what he had done, and why these children mattered more than his career or his reputation or his carefully constructed life. And then he would hope that somewhere in the machinery of the system, someone would see what he saw, 2 children who deserved a chance. and one man trying, failing, falling apart, but still trying to give them that chance. That was all he had left: hope and determination and the stubborn refusal to walk away. It would have to be enough, because it was all he had. Cook County Courthouse was a monument to the weight of human decisions, all marble and mahogany and the accumulated gravity of 1,000 judgments passed down on people's lives. Marcus stood outside courtroom 4B, wearing a suit he had bought at a discount store for $89. It fit poorly at the shoulders, the fabric was synthetic, but it was clean and professional, and it was what he could afford now. 6 weeks ago, he would have been embarrassed to be seen in such a suit. Now, standing in this hallway with Maya holding his hand and Isaiah in a wheelchair beside them, the suit felt like armor. Not expensive armor, but armor that had been earned through sacrifice rather than purchased with money that came easy. Patricia Chen appeared from around the corner, her arms full of files and documents. She looked tired. They all looked tired. The fight had worn them down to their essential parts. "The judge is ready," she said. "Judge Marion Foster. She's fair but tough. She's going to ask hard questions. Just tell the truth." "That's all I've got left," Marcus said. They entered the courtroom. It was smaller than Marcus expected, more intimate. The judge's bench loomed at the front, American flag on one side, Illinois state flag on the other. The wood paneling was dark, the lighting fluorescent and unforgiving. Vanessa was already seated at the plaintiff's table with her attorney, a sharp-looking woman in a tailored suit that cost more than Marcus's entire current wardrobe. Vanessa looked good, rested, successful, everything the court would want to see in a potential guardian. Judge Foster entered, and everyone stood. She was a black woman in her early 60s, with silver hair pulled back tight and eyes that had seen every kind of human story the system could produce. She settled into her chair with the weight of someone who knew the decisions she made today would echo through lives she would never see again. "Be seated," she said. Her voice was firm, used to being obeyed. The bailiff read the case. In the matter of temporary guardianship for minors Maya Smith and Isaiah Smith, petitioner Marcus Washington versus interested party Vanessa Williams Washington. Judge Foster opened the file in front of her, took her time reading. The silence in the courtroom was absolute. Marcus could hear his own heartbeat, could feel Maya's hand trembling in his. "Mr. Washington," the judge said, looking up, "I've read your petition. I've read the home study report. I've read Dr. Okonkwo's medical assessment. And I've read Mrs. Washington's objection. This is an unusual case." "Yes, Your Honor. You met these children 6 weeks ago under circumstances that were, to put it mildly, problematic. You gave a 7-year-old child a fake credit card as part of a bet with your business partners. Is that correct?" Marcus felt the shame of it fresh and sharp. "Yes, Your Honor, that's correct." "And now you want me to grant you legal guardianship of those same children. You see why I might have concerns about your judgment." "I do, Your Honor. What I did was cruel and wrong. I have no excuse for it except that I had become someone I didn't recognize, someone my grandmother would have been ashamed of. Meeting Maya and Isaiah, seeing what they were going through, it made me remember who I was supposed to be." Judge Foster studied him. "Who were you supposed to be?" "Someone who helps, someone who shows up. My grandmother raised me alone after my mother left. We were poor. Sometimes we were homeless. People helped us when they didn't have to. Strangers who saw we were struggling and chose to care. I forgot about those people when I got successful. I forgot that I used to be the one who needed help." The judge made notes. "Mrs. Washington, you filed an objection to this petition. Why?" Vanessa's attorney stood. "Your Honor, Mrs. Williams Washington is concerned about Mr. Washington's mental state and financial stability. He's unemployed, has lost 90% of his net worth in 6 weeks, and is showing signs of psychological crisis. She believes she can provide a more stable environment. Judge Foster looked at Vanessa. Mrs. Williams Washington, you've remarried. Yes, Your Honor, to David Williams, an attorney. We have a home in Evanston and stable income. And you've met these children. Vanessa hesitated. No, Your Honor, not yet. But you want guardianship of them. I want to help my ex-husband before he destroys himself. These children deserve better than to be caught up in his crisis. Judge Foster turned back to Marcus. Mr. Washington, are you having a crisis? Marcus thought about the question. The honest answer. Yes, Your Honor, I'm having the best crisis of my life. I spent 10 years building a career that made me rich but hollow. I surrounded myself with people who measured worth in dollars and treated other people's suffering as entertainment. 6 weeks ago, I was standing on a rooftop celebrating a deal that would make me millions, and I felt nothing. Now I'm broke and unemployed and fighting for 2 children who aren't mine, and I feel everything. If that's a crisis, then yes, I'm having one. Something shifted in the judge's expression. Not quite a smile, but a softening around the eyes. I'd like to hear from the social worker, she said. Ms. Hayes, you conducted the home study. What's your assessment? Patricia Hayes stood. She was wearing the same tired, professional expression she always wore, the armor of someone who had delivered bad news to too many hopeful people. Your Honor, I've conducted over 200 home studies in my career. I've seen every kind of living situation, every kind of motivation. When I first met Mr. Washington, I was skeptical, very skeptical. A wealthy man suddenly wanting to rescue 2 homeless children after a cruel prank. It looked like guilt. It looked like a savior complex. It looked like a man trying to fix himself by fixing others. Marcus felt his heart sink. This was it, the recommendation that would end everything. Patricia continued. But I watched him over the past 6 weeks. I saw him sell his condo and move to a modest apartment in Pilsen. I saw him liquidate his assets to pay for medical care. I saw him apply for jobs he was overqualified for because he needed income. I saw him spend nights in a hospital chair because Isaiah was scared and Maya needed to know someone was watching over them. She paused, looked directly at the judge. Your Honor, Mr. Washington has given up everything for these children. His career, his money, his reputation, his comfortable life. And he did it knowing he might lose them anyway. That's not a savior complex. That's love. Imperfect, messy, probably a little bit crazy. But it's real. And in my experience, real love is worth more than perfect circumstances. The courtroom was silent. Marcus felt tears burning behind his eyes but refused to let them fall. I'm recommending temporary guardianship be granted to Mr. Washington, Patricia said. Not because his situation is ideal, but because he's the one who showed up. He's the one who stayed, and these children need someone who stays. Judge Foster looked at Vanessa. Mrs. Williams Washington, would you like to respond? Vanessa's attorney started to stand, but Vanessa put a hand on her arm. She stood alone, looked at Marcus across the courtroom. Your Honor, may I speak? Go ahead. Vanessa took a breath. When Marcus and I divorced 2 years ago, it was because I felt like I was married to a stranger. He worked 18-hour days. He measured everything in profit and loss. He had forgotten how to be human. I thought he was broken in a way that couldn't be fixed. She looked at Maya and Isaiah, then back at Marcus. I was wrong. He wasn't broken. He was just lost. And I think he's found his way back. I filed this petition because I thought I was protecting him from himself. But I see now that these children are saving him as much as he's saving them. I withdraw my objection." Her attorney looked shocked. "Vanessa, we need to discuss this." "No, we don't." Vanessa sat down. "I withdraw my objection." Judge Foster leaned back in her chair, studied the people in front of her. A broke man in a cheap suit, two children who had known too much suffering too young, an ex-wife who had just chosen generosity over vindication. "Mr. Washington, stand up." Marcus stood, felt his legs shaking. "I'm granting temporary guardianship of Maya Smith and Isaiah Smith to you for a period of 6 months. During that time, you will maintain stable housing, demonstrate financial stability, continue cooperation with DCFS, and ensure both children receive appropriate medical care and education. We will reconvene in 6 months for permanent guardianship review. Do you understand these conditions?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Do you accept this responsibility, knowing that these children's welfare is now in your hands?" Marcus looked at Maya and Isaiah. Maya's eyes were wide, hopeful, scared. Isaiah was smiling, always smiling, like he had never doubted this would work out. "Yes, Your Honor, I accept." Judge Foster brought down her gavel. The sound was final, binding, the official mark of a life changed. "Good luck, Mr. Washington. You're going to need it." Outside the courthouse, the April sun was bright and warm, promising the summer to come. Maya hugged Marcus so hard it hurt. Isaiah wheeled his chair in circles, laughing. Patricia Chen shook Marcus's hand. "You did it. Against every odd, you actually did it." "We did it," Marcus corrected. "Thank you for believing in us." Vanessa approached, hesitant. "Marcus, can we talk?" They walked a few steps away from the others. "Why did you withdraw your objection?" Marcus asked. "Because I saw your face when the judge was deliberating. You looked terrified, not of losing the case, of failing them. That's when I knew this wasn't about your ego or your guilt. You actually love those kids." "I do." "Are you happy?" Marcus looked at Maya and Isaiah waiting for him in the sunlight. "I'm terrified and broke, and I have no idea how I'm going to make this work. But yes, I'm happy, happier than I've been in years." Vanessa smiled, sad and genuine. "Then I'm happy for you, really. If you need help, financial help, I can contribute something for the kids." "Thank you, I might take you up on that." She turned to leave, then looked back. "Marcus, your grandmother would be proud of you." Maya ran up, grabbed his hand. "Can we go home now?" Home, to the 3-bedroom apartment in Pilsen, with its creaky floors and neighbors who played music too loud. Home to a place that felt more real than anywhere he had ever lived. "Yeah," Marcus said, "let's go home." 3 weeks after the custody hearing, life settled into a rhythm. The apartment became something Marcus had never had before, a home with other people in it, laughter that wasn't his own, chaos that couldn't be controlled with money or strategy. Maya started school, 3rd grade. The first week was hard. Behind in math, ahead in street smarts, carrying herself with wariness that made other kids keep their distance. But slowly, she began to soften. She made a friend named Sophia who lived 2 floors down. She joined the after-school art program. She came home with drawings and stories and normal childhood experiences. Isaiah needed more care. 3 days a week, Marcus took him to Northwestern Memorial for dialysis. 4 hours hooked up to machines, watching cartoons, eating popsicles the nurses brought. The other kids knew him by name now. Their own little community, waiting for miracles. But Isaiah was getting stronger. The regular dialysis was working. His color was better, his energy higher. He asked questions constantly, with the endless curiosity of a 5-year-old discovering that the world extended beyond hospital walls. The financial situation was tight. Marcus had $53,000 left after legal fees and Isaiah's hospital bills. He applied for 72 jobs in 6 weeks. 2 called for interviews. Both ended when they checked references and Derek's poison did its work. But he found work anyway. Consulting gigs, small projects. A nonprofit in Austin needed help restructuring their portfolio. A startup in San Francisco wanted funding advice. The work paid a fraction of what he used to make, but it was enough, barely enough. Then something unexpected happened. A local news reporter named Claire Mitchell contacted him. She lived in his building, had seen him with the kids, heard pieces of the story. She wanted to do a human interest piece, not about the cruel bet, but about what came after. The article ran in mid-May. Honest, unflinching about Marcus's mistakes but focused on his transformation. From hedge fund to helping hand, one man's journey from greed to grace. The response was immediate. Emails poured in, some from people with similar stories, some offering help, resources, connections, and some from potential donors. Marcus had not planned to start a nonprofit, but sitting at his kitchen table, reading emails from people who wanted to support what he was doing, the concept formed. There were hundreds of children like Maya and Isaiah in Chicago. Homeless kids, sick kids, kids falling through the cracks, and there were people who wanted to help but didn't know how. Marcus could be the bridge. 3 weeks later, the Second Chance Foundation was officially registered. Mission: to provide medical support and stable housing for homeless children in crisis. Initial funding: $12,000 from people who read Claire's article. It was not much, but it was a start. By the end of May, they had raised $38,000 and helped 4 families access medical care they couldn't afford. The call came on a Tuesday morning in early June. Dr. Okonkwo's voice was measured, professional, but Marcus could hear the excitement underneath. "Marcus, you're cleared. All your tests came back perfect. You're approved as a living donor for Isaiah." Marcus sat down. He had been waiting for this news for 3 months. "When?" he asked. "We can schedule for 2 weeks from now. That gives us time to get Isaiah optimized. But Marcus, this is major surgery for both of you. There are risks. And for you, recovery will take months. You'll need help." "I'll figure it out. I've been making calls. There's a recovery facility for living donors. They'll take you for 2 weeks post-op, no charge. And DCFS is arranging temporary foster care for Maya and Isaiah during your recovery. Just 2 weeks. Foster care, Marcus felt his chest tighten. They've been through enough. Which is why you're going to tell them yourself. They're smart kids. They'll understand. That night, Marcus sat them down. "The doctor said I can give Isaiah one of my kidneys. The surgery is in 2 weeks. Maya's eyes went wide. "You're really doing it?" "I'm really doing it." Isaiah looked confused. "You're giving me part of you." "Yeah, buddy, one of my kidneys. Your body needs it more than mine." "Will it hurt?" Marcus thought about lying, but these kids deserve the truth. "Yeah, it'll hurt for both of us, but then you'll get better, really better. No more dialysis 3 times a week. You'll be able to run and play like other kids. And you'll be okay." "I'll be okay, but I'll need to rest for a couple weeks. So you and Maya are going to stay with a foster family, just for 2 weeks." Maya's expression closed down. "You're sending us away." "No, I'm recovering so I can take care of you properly. 2 weeks. Then you come home." "That's what they all say." Marcus knelt in front of her. "Maya, I know you've been lied to before, but I'm promising you this. 2 weeks, that's all. I'm having surgery so Isaiah can live. Then we're all coming back here together." She searched his face for the lie, but Marcus held her gaze. Finally she nodded. Okay, 2 weeks, but you better come back for us. I will, I promise. The night before surgery, Marcus tucked Isaiah into bed. Are you scared? Isaiah asked. A little, Marcus admitted. Me too. That's okay. Being scared means you care. It means you're brave enough to do something even though it's scary. Isaiah was quiet. Marcus, after the surgery, after I get your kidney, does that make us related, like real family? Marcus felt his throat tighten. Yeah, buddy, I think it does. Good, because I never had a dad before. But if I did, I'd want him to be like you. Marcus had to leave the room before Isaiah could see him cry. Surgery day arrived gray and cold. Marcus checked into Northwestern Memorial at 5 in the morning. The pre-op procedures were familiar now. IVs placed, consent forms signed, the careful choreography of medicine preparing to cut into flesh. Dr. Okonkwo appeared in her scrubs. You ready? As I'll ever be. In 20 years of medicine, I've never seen a living donor with your motivation. Most donors are family who feel obligated. You chose this. Isaiah didn't choose his kidney failure. The least I can do is choose this. She smiled. Your grandmother raised you right. They wheeled him into the operating room. Bright lights, clinical cold, the surgical team moving with practiced efficiency. The last thing Marcus remembered was counting backwards from 10, and the thought that when he woke up he would be different, permanently changed. One kidney lighter, one child heavier in his heart. He woke up in recovery with pain in his side that felt like someone had carved out a piece of him. A nurse appeared. Mr. Washington, the surgery went well. Your kidney is in Isaiah right now. The transplant team is still working, but so far everything looks good. Marcus tried to speak, but his throat was too dry. Rest now, she said. You did good. The 2 weeks in recovery were the longest of Marcus's life. Not because of the pain, not because of boredom, but because he was separated from Maya and Isaiah. He called them every day. Short calls, but enough to hear their voices, to remind them he was still there. How's Isaiah? Marcus asked Maya on day 5. He looks better. The nurses say the kidney is working. He's eating real food, and he's not as tired. That's good. When are you coming to get us? 9 more days, I promise. On day 8, Dr. Okonkwo appeared with news. Marcus, I need to tell you something about Isaiah. We did genetic testing as part of transplant protocol. Your genetic markers show you're related to him. Distantly, but related. Based on the markers, you and Isaiah share a great-grandparent. You're third or fourth cousins. The room tilted. That's not possible. It's rare, but it happens, especially in communities where families scatter. Marcus, you didn't find these children by accident. You found family. After she left, Marcus thought about his grandmother, about relatives she used to mention, cousins and second cousins who had moved away during the Great Migration, scattering across the country. Family lost to time and distance. Maybe Isaiah and Maya were scattered pieces of that broken tree, or maybe it was coincidence. Either way, it didn't matter. Family was not just blood. It was choice. It was showing up. It was promises kept when keeping them cost everything. On day 14, Marcus checked out. He still moved slowly, but he was ready. The foster parents brought Maya and Isaiah to meet him. Marcus opened the door and Isaiah launched himself forward, careful to avoid Marcus's surgical side. Maya followed, eyes wet. You came back, she whispered. I told you I would. That night they had dinner together, spaghetti and meatballs. Isaiah ate 3 helpings, his appetite returned. "Marcus," Isaiah said, "Dr. Okonkwo said your kidney is in me now. Does that mean I have to like the same food as you?" Marcus laughed, felt the surgical pain spike. "I don't think that's how it works, buddy." "Good, because you're a terrible cook." Maya smiled, a real smile. He's not wrong. "Okay, new rule," Marcus said. "Anyone who insults the chef has to help with dishes." They groaned, but they helped. The 3 of them crowded around the small sink, washing and drying, the rhythm of it domestic and normal and everything Marcus had never known he wanted. Later, Marcus opened an email from an address he didn't recognize. The subject, "Thank you." The email was from Alicia Mitchell. 8 years ago, Marcus had done pro bono consulting for her family's business, helping them escape a predatory loan. The business had sold last year for $50 million. She wanted to donate to the Second Chance Foundation, $100,000. Marcus stared at the number. Enough to sustain the foundation for a year, enough to help dozens of families. He typed back, simple and honest, "Thank you, you have no idea what this means." Her reply came within minutes. "Yes, I do. You helped my family when you didn't have to. You told me, do well, then do good. You're living it now." Marcus closed his laptop and looked around his small apartment, at the second-hand furniture and crayon drawings and medical equipment. This was his kingdom now, not a tower of glass and steel. This cramped apartment with noisy radiators and constant chaos. And for the first time in his adult life, Marcus felt rich. The months passed. Summer came to Chicago in full force. Isaiah grew stronger daily. The transplant was working better than anyone had hoped. He gained weight, color returned, exhaustion disappeared. He played basketball with neighborhood kids, went to the park without getting winded, lived the childhood he had been denied. Maya continued to bloom. Her wariness never fully disappeared, but it softened. She trusted Marcus now, in how she asked for help with homework, in how she told him about her day, in small daily confirmations that she believed he would be there tomorrow. The Second Chance Foundation expanded. With Alicia Mitchell's funding, they hired 2 staff members. They moved to a small office in Pilsen. They helped 32 families in 6 months. Marcus became a voice in Chicago's nonprofit community. He spoke at conferences, wrote op-eds, appeared on local news. The foundation's success gave weight to his words. But the work that mattered most happened in small moments. Teaching Isaiah to ride a bike, training wheels coming off on a Sunday afternoon while Maya cheered. Attending Maya's art show, seeing her face light up when he arrived. Making dinner together, laughing at Marcus's continued inability to cook. These were the dividends that mattered. One evening in late September, James Crawford called. "Marcus, I've been following your foundation. Impressive." A pause. "That biotech company you passed on, it went public last month. Your 500,000 would be worth about 12 million right now." $12 million, more than he'd lost, more than enough to rebuild everything. Marcus waited for the regret to hit. It never came. "That's great, James. I'm happy for you. You're not upset." Marcus looked at Maya doing homework, at Isaiah building with Legos, his family. "No, I don't regret it at all." "You've changed." "I have. For what it's worth, I think you made the right choice. What you've built with those kids, with your foundation, that's a legacy." The invitation arrived in early October. The Chicago Business Association annual gala. Marcus had not expected to be invited after everything, but it was real, addressed to Marcus Washington, founder, the Second Chance Foundation. A handwritten note from Jake. Please come. There's something I need to say, and you'll want to hear what happened to Derek. Marcus RSVP'd yes. The night of the gala, Marcus stood in his bathroom mirror, adjusting his rented tuxedo. Maya appeared in the doorway. You look fancy, she said. I feel like a penguin. She smiled. Why are you going? Someone I used to know asked me to come, and I think it's time to close some old doors, so you can open new ones. Marcus looked at his daughter, this wise child who had taught him more about life than he'd learned in 36 years before meeting her. Yeah, so I can open new ones. The gala was at the Palmer House. Crystal chandeliers, marble columns, the grandeur of old money pretending to be new ideas. Marcus walked in and felt like a time traveler visiting a world he used to inhabit but could no longer recognize. Some people acknowledged him with careful nods. Others looked away, uncomfortable with his presence as a reminder that fortunes could be lost. Marcus didn't care. He found Jake near the bar, looking older, weighted with burdens. Marcus, you came. You asked me to. I need to apologize for the bet, for siding with Derek, for not having courage when it mattered. Okay. That's it. Marcus shrugged. Jake, I'm not angry anymore. Anger takes energy I don't have. I have kids who need me, a foundation to run, a life too full for grudges. Jake looked at him like he was speaking another language. How do you just let it go? Because holding onto it would mean Derek still had power over me, and he doesn't. Derek's here tonight, as part of his plea agreement, community service. The SEC investigation turned into federal charges. He was looking at 15 years, took a plea. 5 years minimum security, lifetime ban from trading, requirement to speak at events like this about ethics. He's speaking tonight. Keynote, the association thought it would be educational. Jake pulled out an envelope. I took a plea too, testified against Derek for probation, lost most of my money, lost my position, but I found something. I'm working for legal aid now, helping people who can't afford lawyers. The pay is terrible, but the work matters. He handed Marcus the envelope. For your foundation, $25,000, it's what I can afford. Marcus took it. Thank you. No, thank you, for showing me what change looks like. The keynote began. Derek Chen walked onto the stage. He looked diminished, though he wore expensive clothes and carried himself with confidence. But something fundamental had changed. He spoke about ethics, temptations, how small compromises led to larger crimes. His voice was smooth, practiced, hitting all the right notes of contrition. But Marcus heard the hollowness underneath. Performance. Derek had learned to say the right words but hadn't changed. When the speech ended, the organizers announced another award. Marcus was only half paying attention when he heard his name. This year, we're honored to present the Community Impact Award to Marcus Washington, founder of the Second Chance Foundation. The room erupted in applause. Marcus looked up, startled. The MC gestured for him to come to the stage. He walked up, aware of eyes watching. Derek was still at the podium. For one moment their eyes met, nothing in Derek's expression, no regret, no acknowledgement, just careful blankness. They passed each other, Derek returning to anonymity, Marcus stepping into light. The MC handed him a plaque, asked for words. Marcus looked out at the crowd. 6 months ago, he began, I stood in a room like this, celebrating a deal that would make me millions. I was at the top. I had everything I thought I wanted, money, status, respect. He paused. And I felt nothing. I was empty in a way money couldn't fill. Then I made a terrible mistake. I participated in a cruel bet meant to humiliate a homeless child, and that mistake changed my life. The room went silent, people shifting uncomfortably. I lost everything, my partnership, my fortune, my reputation. At the time, it felt like the end of the world. He held up the plaque. But I was wrong about what mattered. Success isn't about how much you make or how high you climb. Success is about who you are when everything else is stripped away. It's about promises you keep, people you show up for, the difference you make in lives nobody's paying attention to. He looked at Derek. Some of you were there when it started. Some helped orchestrate my fall because you thought breaking me would elevate you. I want to thank those people, because destroying my old life forced me to build a new one, a better one, a life that matters. The applause started slowly, then built. Marcus walked out. He didn't stay for networking or dessert. He had said what he needed to say. He drove back to Pilsen, to his apartment where Maya and Isaiah slept, where a babysitter waited. He paid her, sent her home. Then he stood in the doorway of the kids' bedroom, watching them sleep. Maya with a book fallen open, Isaiah with his stuffed bear. His phone buzzed. "Claire Mitchell, saw you at the gala. Your grandmother would be proud." Marcus typed back, "Thank you for believing when no one else did." Her response, "I didn't believe in the story, I believed in you." Marcus walked to the window. The city spread out before him, lights twinkling in October darkness. Somewhere out there, other children struggled. Other families fell through cracks. The work was never done. But tonight, Marcus let himself feel peace. The deep settling peace of knowing he was exactly where he was supposed to be, doing exactly what he was meant to do. In 6 weeks, he would stand before Judge Foster again. The permanent guardianship hearing. When temporary became permanent, when these children became legally his family. He was ready. 6 months later, on a cold November morning, Marcus stood outside courtroom 4B again. Same courthouse, same judge, different man. This time the courtroom was full. Vanessa and her husband, Patricia Hayes and Patricia Chen, Dr. Okonkwo, Miss Johnson from his grandmother's church, even Jake showing up for a friend. Judge Foster entered. Same stern expression, same authority. But when her eyes met Marcus's, something passed between them. Recognition. Understanding that this was not the same man from 6 months ago. The hearing began with formalities. Review of conditions met. Financial statements showing stable income. School reports. Medical reports on Isaiah's successful recovery. Then Judge Foster looked at Patricia Hayes. "Ms. Hayes, you've monitored this placement. Current assessment." Patricia stood. "Your Honor, I've visited monthly for 6 months. What I've observed is a functional, loving family. The children are thriving. Mr. Washington has demonstrated consistent care and genuine commitment." "Any concerns?" "None, Your Honor. This is one of the most successful placements I've supervised in 25 years. Judge Foster turned to Marcus. "Mr. Washington, 6 months ago I took a significant risk on you. Have I made a mistake?" Marcus stood. "No, Your Honor. You gave me a chance to prove that love matters more than money, that showing up matters more than success. That family is built on choice and commitment, not just genetics." "And has it been hard?" "Yes, Your Honor, every day. But it's also been the best 6 months of my life." Judge Foster turned to Maya and Isaiah. "Maya, you first. Do you want Mr. Washington to be your permanent guardian?" Maya stood. "Yes, Your Honor. Marcus is the first adult who ever kept his promises. He said he wouldn't leave, and he didn't. He said he'd give Isaiah his kidney, and he did. He said we were family, and he meant it. I want him to be our dad, forever." Isaiah. Isaiah wheeled forward. Marcus gave me part of himself so I could live. That makes us family. And yeah, I want him to be my dad, not temporary, permanent. Silence filled the courtroom. Judge Foster looked at the papers, then at the people gathered. In 30 years on the bench, I've heard thousands of cases. Most follow predictable patterns. This case defied every pattern. A stranger taking in children met under the worst circumstances. A man sacrificing everything for kids who weren't his responsibility. It shouldn't have worked. She paused. But it didn't fail. Against all odds, you built something real. You built a family. She picked up her gavel. I'm granting permanent guardianship of Maya Smith and Isaiah Smith to Marcus Washington, effective immediately. Furthermore, based on the strength of this placement and expressed wishes of all parties, I'm approving the petition for adoption. These children are now legally Marcus Washington's children. Their names will be changed to Maya Washington and Isaiah Washington. The gavel came down. Final absolute binding. Maya burst into tears. Isaiah whooped. The courtroom erupted in applause. Marcus stood there feeling it settle into his bones. These were his children, not temporary, not conditional, his, forever. After the hearing, after paperwork and congratulations and photographs, Marcus took his children home. That evening, as November sun set over Chicago, Marcus stood in his living room looking at the space they had built together. Small and crowded and nothing like luxury. But full of life and laughter and love, full of everything that mattered. Maya was at the table doing homework. Isaiah was building with Legos, ordinary life in an ordinary apartment. And Marcus Washington, who had once measured worth in millions, who had once defined success by height climbed and doors opened, felt a wealth that couldn't be quantified. His phone rang. Claire Mitchell. I heard about the adoption. Congratulations, I'm writing a follow-up. 1 year later, would you talk? Marcus looked at his kids, his home, his life built from rubble. Yes, he said. Because this story deserved to be told, not as fairy tale but as truth, messy and hard and beautiful and real. A story about a man who lost everything and found the only things worth keeping. A story about 2 children who needed someone to choose them, and the flawed adult who did. A story about a grandmother's wisdom, finally understood by the grandson who had forgotten it. From the kitchen, Maya called out, "Dad, I need help with this math problem." Dad, the word still made his heart skip. Coming, Marcus called back. He walked to the kitchen table, where his daughter waited, where the future stretched out in homework and parent-teacher conferences, and all the ordinary, extraordinary moments of raising children. This was his life now, small and full and infinitely precious. The towers of glass and steel were still out there, full of people climbing toward heights that would never satisfy. But Marcus was done climbing. He had found his ground, he had found his home. And standing in this cramped kitchen with his daughter struggling over fractions and his son singing in the next room, Marcus Washington understood what his grandmother had been trying to tell him all along. Success wasn't about the height you reached. It was about who you brought with you when you landed. It was about the love you gave when giving it cost you everything. It was about showing up every single day, even when the world made it hard. He helped Maya with fractions, made Isaiah put away Legos, read them both a story even though they were probably too old but still wanted them anyway. And when they were finally asleep, when the apartment was quiet except for the distant sound of the city, Marcus sat in the living room and let himself feel it all. The gratitude, the exhaustion, the fear he would mess this up, the hope he wouldn't, the weight of promises made and the determination to keep them. Tomorrow, the foundation would need his attention. Tomorrow, bills would need paying and problems would need solving, and the work of building a life would continue. But tonight, he just sat in the quiet and breathed and let the reality sink in. He had a family, real and permanent in his. He had a purpose that filled every empty space money had failed to reach. He had finally found his way home. Not to a place, but to himself, to the truth his grandmother had known all along. The only wealth that mattered was measured in the people you helped, the promises you kept, the love you gave when it cost you something real. Everything else was just noise.